Thank you, Kim, and hello, everyone. And thank you for your time today. My name is David Dennis, and I am a Senior Solution Specialist here at Marco. Marco and M-Files have had a long-standing relationship for the past 12 plus years, with an entire division here at Marco focused solely on business process automation and AI solutions. With many of today's employees spending countless hours on manual processes, today's webinar is going to focus on the topic of business process automation and how generative AI is transforming knowledge work automation. M-Files Aino is a natural language assistant in M-Files that helps users find information, work with information, and automate tasks. With me from M-Files today is Michael Dalrymple, Partner Manager at M-Files, and Frank Taliano, Senior Director, Product Management. So Frank, I'll turn it over to you now and let you get started.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. As David mentioned, my name is Frank Taliano. I am a Senior Director of Product Management at M-Files, and AI is one of the areas of the product that my team manages. So I'm really happy to be here today to talk about how we at M-Files leverage AI in our solutions and leverage that to help knowledge workers be more efficient and more effective at their jobs. So if we take a look at the agenda for today, I'm going to start by talking about the pivotal role that AI can play when it comes to helping knowledge workers be more efficient and more effective. After that, then I'll dive into the approach to AI that M-Files takes specifically. So especially when it comes to how we leverage AI to help users find information and work with information and get valuable insights from all the content that they're managing. So first, as we do that, I'll first focus on our AI assistant, M-Files Aino, and then I'll show how M-Files can also improve your experience with other AI tools, specifically showing our integration with Microsoft 365 Copilot. After that, I'll do a live demo of both Aino and our Copilot integration. And as Kim said, when we have with time we have afterwards, we'll be able to take some questions, and hopefully we will have some time for that. But let's get started. Like I said, so let's start by taking a look at the role that generative AI plays in knowledge work automation. I should probably start by defining what we mean by knowledge worker or knowledge work. Really, knowledge work is any task where you're exercising knowledge or creativity. So you could think of knowledge workers as part of the brains of an organization. So they're the workers who consume and use information. They process it. They create new insights from that information. The primary capital that they're working with is the store of information that they have and use, their critical thinking skills. So really, anyone whose job it is to analyze and create is a knowledge worker. And what we've learned through research and working with analysts is today that about 50% of all workers across all industries can be classified as knowledge workers. And so the value that they provide to companies is critical. Their productivity, their satisfaction, their ability to perform their work can have really massive impacts on a company's ability to grow and be profitable. And for a long time, companies have implemented tools and software solutions to help knowledge workers perform their jobs better. So ERPs, CRMs, other line of business applications, those are really good examples of that. But the reality is that a lot of the processes that relate to actual knowledge work, especially when the knowledge work is dealing with documents and information and content, a lot of those processes are still very manual. So things like creating client engagement letters or statements of work or onboarding new employees, that could take a lot of time and effort, and a lot of time and effort just to prepare for those activities. So finding the right materials, generating the needed content, making sure you have everything right to kick off those processes. Again, working with analysts, we've heard that knowledge workers waste up to 3 hours per day on tasks that could be automated. And so when organizations are unable to address that issue or automate those tasks, They're at risk of losing revenue through inefficiencies and at risk of decreased employee satisfaction. So this is kind of where knowledge work automation comes in. And knowledge work automation is really about automating those information-driven aspects of the knowledge work we were just talking about. So helping workers classify and organize and find the information that they need to do their jobs by automating workflows and facilitating seamless and secure collaboration between colleagues and organizations and their customers by ensuring that information is secure and compliant. So really the role of knowledge work automation and knowledge work automation solutions is to eliminate document and information obstacles so workers can be more productive, more fulfilled, happier in their work, do the job the higher value tasks that they should do rather than spend time looking for the information they need to do those tasks. So I, as a product manager at M-Files, I come from M-Files, and we are a knowledge work automation platform. So M-Files is dedicated to making it easy for knowledge workers to find, work with, create, and share information. And we partially achieve this through the automation of things like, as I said in the last slide, through things like the classification and organization of your content in your documents. M-Files is quite unique in that we organize information using metadata and business context instead of folders. And I'm going to walk through a few examples a bit later, and hopefully you'll see why that's a very important aspect of it. We also automate workflows and business processes, and that helps us ensure that information easily gets to the people who need it. We use that business context and metadata to also automate security and compliance. So people only have access to the documents and the information that they're supposed to have. And as we continue to evolve our knowledge work automation platform, AI is increasingly becoming a big part of how we provide that automation. AI itself isn't new to us. So we've had AI-driven solutions for about 6 years now. Mainly those solutions were to help us classify or help our customers classify and organize information. It used more traditional machine learning techniques. So for example, we could provide the ability to automatically classify a document based on its content and then automatically extract interesting information, including references to customers or individuals or important dates, and then use that information as part of the document's metadata. And then based on that information that we extracted, we could put that document into a workflow. We could use it to automatically drive permissions. We could secure that document based on that. But about 12 to 18 months ago, with the rest of the world, with the proliferation of generative AI, we started leveraging that technology in large language models as well in M-Files, and that is mainly through our M-Files Aino solution. And so Aino brings a natural language assistant to M-Files, and it's there to help users get answer, to find information faster, to get insights out of all of that content that they have in their organization, which could be very difficult to do if you have to go through all of that information manually to find specific answers. So there is a lot of promise with generative AI. And there are almost constant advances that are being made to improve language models, to improve how we work with those. It's helping us. It's really helping us create a lot of the smart knowledge management solutions that we've been thinking about for many years. There's so much we can already do with Aino. There's so much we can already do with other solutions like Copilot. But really, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how generative AI is going to change the way we work, change the way we interact with technology, revolutionize how we work with and create information. So there's a lot of opportunity with generative AI. But what we're finding is that there are also a lot of challenges when it comes to creating AI solutions that bring real value to users. Um, and one of the biggest challenges we've seen is the impact that data quality has on the effectiveness of AI solutions, specifically solutions that rely on RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And in those solutions, the intent is to help users mine knowledge or get specific answers that are buried somewhere in the organization's repositories of information. It could be repositories like SharePoint or OneDrive or shared folders or mailboxes. Um, but just as someone might struggle to say find the latest copy of a policy amongst a pile of unmanaged documents and versions, an AI solution will also be challenged to pinpoint the right information amongst that mess of content. And so really without good data quality, the AI is going to struggle to get the right answers. A good example of this is a conversation we had a while ago with a company. And this company, like many, they had just spent the last 12 to 18 months exploring various solutions to help their users do what I just talked about, to help their users find answers, insights within their millions of documents and their terabytes of content. And so they invested a lot of money in learning and using different technologies and working with LLMs and learning how to work with RAG. It turned out to be quite an expensive exercise for them. I think in the end they estimated that it cost over $1 million for them to go through this exercise. And when we first talked with them, they're actually mostly disappointed with the results that they were getting from their solutions that they built. Their results weren't really matching the expectations that they had set forth, and their biggest problem was that the answers the answers their solutions were giving were quite often out of context. So users would ask questions, it would reach into the repository of information, it would pull out what it thought were the right answers, but more often it was giving answers for the wrong project or the wrong company or the wrong time frame, just the wrong context. So the answers themselves were generally correct. The AI wasn't hallucinating or it wasn't lying, but the answers weren't in the right context, and so they weren't a lot of use to the person who was asking the question. You can think of it as something like somebody who works at a company and they're asking a question like this. What is the SLA penalty for a delayed response? And then you want to ask AI, and you want the AI to give you an answer for that. But the issue is you might have all kinds of SLAs for various companies and projects in your data repository. And even with that, there might be multiple versions of that same SLA stored in different folders, network folders, and maybe one in a SharePoint drive. And there might be multiple versions of the same document with different dates, and suddenly the solution starts to get overwhelmed with all these options. And it might give you an answer, but that answer might be based on a completely different company. It might reference a document that you shouldn't even be able to see because it's not taking security considerations into account. So the problem is we want AI and RAG solutions to help us with questions like this, to help us unlock the knowledge in our organization, but these solutions can only be as smart as the data that it's working with. And so so what does a user do when faced with this type of situation? They ask the question, and they start to qualify their question. So if you're using a chatbot and you ask that question, you might want to give it more information. So give it a customer name so it knows what customer it's working with. So, but the problem here is we might be storing SLAs for multiple years of renewals for that. So they add a year, but again, throughout that year, as they were negotiating that SLA, there might have been different versions of that document saved to different areas for that. So you try to tell it which version. You only want the final copy, but not that final copy that Joe drafted, that other final copy. And then what ends up happening is the user just kind of gives up because they're not getting the answer they want to from the AI solution. But it is possible to overcome those challenges. And the way to overcome those challenges is with better data quality. And so that's where a solution like M-Files can help. So M-Files combines the power and promise of generative AI that I was talking about earlier, the power and promise of large language models, with the inherent capabilities of a metadata-driven knowledge work automation solution, a system that can expertly manage and curate your documents and information. So M-Files includes features like advanced version control and the ability to share and collaborate without creating multiple copies. So there's always only one current copy of a document, and the AI knows that this is the most recent and relevant copy that it should be working with. M-Files ensures automatic and consistent permissions, so you only get answers from the documents that you have access to. It won't query the documents that you shouldn't be able to see. And the metadata-driven architecture, all of that metadata links everything to the right business context. So it's only looking in the information that's relevant to your question, to the information that's relevant to the project you're asking about or the customer you're asking about. It knows that context based on the metadata, and M-Files provides data governance so that you could be sure that you aren't getting answers from old stuff that should be archived away or stuff that shouldn't be considered good information. So it's really the combination of those two solutions, one bringing good data quality, the other bringing the power of generative AI that are going to give you that solution that gives high quality answers. We like to call this the three C's, and these are kind of the three C's that a metadata-driven context, like the one that comes with M-Files, can bring to an AI-driven solution. So the first one we call is connectivity. So it's important that the AI has access to the information sources that provide value to the users. So it needs to be able to get to the information, to be able to query the information, and provide good answers. The second one is confidentiality. So any AI tool must conform to an organization's policies and standards so that users only see the information they're supposed to see. So when they're asking questions, it's only giving them answers from documents and information that they have access to. And the third one, which is extremely important and what I was talking about earlier, is curation. And this is what ensures that the solution has access to the most up-to-date, relevant information, has access to the information that's in the right context. So it's not looking through multiple versions of the same document. It knows what version to get those answers from, so you know you're getting the right answers. And so these are the elements that we believe are required for any kind of successful RAG-based generative AI solution that can give you quality answers and insights. So before I start diving a little deeper into the AI solutions, we thought it would be interesting to take a quick poll to see where you guys are in your AI journey. So we do have a poll, and I think Kim is going to make that happen. Yes.
Yes, it is live. So I was going to say, we're starting to get some answers. So are you currently leveraging generative AI in your organization? Is it yes, no, not yet, but we're evaluating some potential use cases, or you have no plans to do that? So you do have 1 minute to answer. And I was going to say, we'll give you, looks like about 30 more seconds, and then we'll go ahead and close that poll.
Right.
So as of right now, we have no, and then some not yet, but we are evaluating is in the lead as the most responses. All right, we've got about 10 more seconds. So if anybody wants to join in and answer, we'll go ahead and do that. And then looks like we have one more person in progress. I'll give them that chance and then we'll go ahead and close it. All right. All right, we reached our minute. So I'll go ahead and close it, and then I'll share those poll results with everyone. So it did look like no and not yet were our highest ones. So some yeses, which is great, 8 no's, and then some not yet.
which is not uncommon in what we've seen talking to customers. In fact, almost always at this point, not yet, but seems to generally be the highest score, and most people are somewhere in the process of evaluating solutions or Copilot or other solutions that they think will bring value to them. So not surprising, but I suspect those, if I gave the same webinar next year, those numbers would be quite a bit different. But that's very common to what we're seeing now. Thank you for answering that. And so now if we take a little dive deeper. So I spent a little time giving the background on some of the challenges, some of the promises with AI solutions, some of the challenges with creating valuable AI solutions that are gonna bring value to your users. Now I want to dive a little deeper in that context and talk about how M-Files approaches AI and some of the solutions that we've created. So I'm going to start with talking about M-Files Aino, and Aino is our generative AI assistant that's embedded directly into the M-Files user interface. And so today, Aino's primary purpose is to let users use natural language to ask questions from a single document, or they can ask questions of a set of documents and then receive answers to those questions based on that selected content. The idea is to help you get quick insights from your information, insights that normally would take minutes or hours if you were looking through that information manually. And I'll show what that looks like as we go into the demo. I have a few examples of that. In addition to just simply asking natural language questions, because it is a natural language interface, there are a few other things that Aino can do. Currently, it could give you a summary of a document, so you could ask for it to summarize that for you. It could also even help enrich your document metadata, because you can save the answers to your questions as metadata properties. A couple other things to note about Aino: it is language independent. So if you have documents in multiple languages, you can ask questions and get answers in your native language. So it doesn't matter what language the document's written in, you can still work with Aino in your native language, and it'll give you answers in English or whatever your native language is. Another thing it's important to note is that Aino always grounds its answers in your organization's data. So you are only getting answers that are found in your content. And this is how we ensure that you aren't getting false answers, because it's not pulling information from the internet or anywhere else. It's using the information that's found in your content to build those answers. And also, very importantly, Aino is secure. So your data never leaves the M-Files cloud. The Aino service, the language models are hosted in Azure with the M-Files solution. And we also never use your data to train the language model or to be included in anyone else's results. So your data is secure. It's never training the model. It's only used to get answers to your questions. The other great thing about Aino is because we're a metadata-driven solution where information is organized based on business context. Aino understands the context or intent of the question you're asking based on where you are in M-Files or the task that you're doing in M-Files. So it automatically knows the scope of the information you're asking questions from. So for example, if you were working with a customer or looking at information related to customer ESTT, Aino knows that because you are in ESTT information, if you asked it a question, that question is going to be in reference to all of the information that you have related to that specific customer. So it's a way of reducing the scope to what you're working on to, again, give you better quality answers. In the same way, you could highlight multiple documents and then ask a question. And Aino would know that you're asking a question of those 3 highlighted documents, not all of the documents that you have in your repository. You could navigate to a view and ask a question, and it would know just to answer questions based on the content within that view. So it follows you around and derives the scope of your question and your intent from how you're using M-Files. Last thing I'll say about Aino, it is conversational. So you can do things like ask follow-up questions, and it'll use your previous questions and answers to enhance its understanding. I'll show a little bit about that in the demo. And it also saves your chats. So if you need to go back and review a previous chat, see a previous answer that you got, you use one of those answers again, you can always go back into your chat history and do that as well. So that's Aino, and again, we'll see that in a bit. But before we move on to the demo, I also want to show how M-Files can work with other AI solutions and how we bring the same advantages of curated content to those solutions. And here I'm specifically going to talk about our connector into Microsoft 365 Copilot. So in general, M-Files sits quite nicely within the Microsoft 365 environment. We add knowledge management and automation capabilities to the tools that users are in every day. Tools like Outlook and Teams and Word. Almost all of our customers, and almost all M-Files customers are also Microsoft 365 customers. So for us, it's really important that those users can continue working in their normal productivity tools. But we want, while they're working in those productivity tools like Teams and Outlook, we still want M-Files to ensure that their data is organized, that their permissions are automated, their work is guided by defined business processes. And so we help build this more complete solution, essentially by combining the metadata-driven business context that's in the M-Files graph. So all of that metadata you're collecting and storing about your documents and your business in M-Files, combining that with all of the user data and information that comes in the Microsoft graph. This is enabled through our integration into the Microsoft 365 platform, mainly through our connector to the Microsoft graph. And what that does is it pushes information that's managed in M-Files to the graph, and it makes that information available to users when they're in solutions like Microsoft 365 Copilot, whether that's in Teams or wherever they're accessing Copilot. And the great thing about that is it allows for that same curated quality of content that you get in M-Files that provides valuable answers. It provides that same curated quality of content to users who are asking questions or asking Copilot to do something for them. So again, what the connector does is it ensures that the curated secure content is available to those users. It like M-Files does, it abides by permissions. So if I ask Copilot a question and it used that information that I'm managing in M-Files to help answer that question, it would still only be able to use the information that I had access to in M-Files. So it abides to that governance, those compliance and permission settings. And for the user, it's quite invisible. So the user goes in and they ask Copilot a question. The user doesn't need to know if the document that it's getting those answers from or documents it's getting those answers from is in SharePoint or it's in M-Files or it's in OneDrive or it's somewhere else that's connected to Copilot. The user is asking a question. Copilot is smart enough to go find the right answer wherever that might live within the Microsoft graph. And that's why we integrate with the Microsoft graph. When you do get an answer from Copilot, typically what it does, it'll reference the source documents where it found those answers. And if it referenced a document that's in M-Files and used that document you'd be able to then click on that reference, and then it would take you to M-Files, and you could see the actual document that it referenced. So again, it's quite seamless to the user. They don't have to know where that information is. They don't have to specifically reference M-Files. They just have to ask the question, and because we are integrating with the Microsoft Graph on the back end, that information is available to them seamlessly. So that's an example of how we are also taking our curated managed content and making it available to other AI solutions in addition to M-Files Aino. So the fun part, I'm going to do a short live demo, assuming all goes well, and then it can be a little tricky when we're working with large language models, but let's see how that goes. We will move to M-Files, and the first thing I'm going to do, and you'll see that I'm probably going to copy and paste most things, so you don't have to watch me type, because I'm a terrible typer. The first thing I'm going to do is just ask a question of all of the content in my vault. So I'm logged into M-Files. I have a vault of information that I work with, and I just want to know if we have an active lease agreement with this company that I'm working with called Acme. Maybe a question came up, maybe somebody asked me if that was available. So rather than do a search, rather than go navigate through my views to try to find that, I'm just going to ask Aino for it. And I asked Aino, and Aino came back with the answer, yes, we have an active lease agreement, and it even referenced that lease agreement for me. And if I wanted to, I could go take a look at that agreement. So in that example, I was asking a question of the entire vault, and it was looking through all of my content to get that answer for me. Now that I have this agreement, I could also ask questions of a single document. And so Aino knows, because I've highlighted a single document, that any question I ask would be related to this. So maybe I want to find out more about this specific lease agreement. So one thing I could do is just ask Aino to give me a summary about it. So instead of going through and reading a 30-page document, I could just ask for a quick summary. Aino will tell me the important points about that document. Now, I could, if I wanted to, save this summary, keep it for later so other people could see it, and not maybe other people who might not have access to Aino. I could select this answer and save it as metadata. And so that now, anytime I go into this document and I look at the metadata, I can see that this summary has been stored as part of that. So I don't have to do that again. It's there. And that could be true of any property that we're any answer that we're getting from Aino. So I've asked it for what the expiration date was, and it told me. I could have saved that into the expiration date property field. So again, we could ask single questions. I could ask it another one, something like maybe a little more complicated one. Maybe I'm curious about the payment terms in this agreement. I could probably go through it, and I could probably pick out all of the different payment terms, but there might be different parts of it in different clauses. Instead, I could just ask this question, and hopefully it will pick those out. So there's a monthly rent. It's reduced for the initial period. It's prorated, and there are late charges. So it's able to pull out all of those payment terms for me from that document. Another cool thing about this, and I mentioned this earlier, is that it is language independent. So in this case, let's do this. I have a document that happens to be in French. Took a couple of years of high school French, but not good enough for me to be able to read this document. So instead of having to translate it, I could just ask Aino for a summary of this document. Aino knows that my native language is English, because that's what the language in M-Files is set to. And so even though it's asking me for a summary of a French document, it's going to give that summary to me in English. So it translated that summary for me. I could, if I wanted to, I could translate that summary to other languages, but for me, this works. I wanted it in English. it also works the same if I would ask it a question. So if I, for example, wanted to know what the confidentiality terms are in this agreement, again, it's a French document. I'm asking the question in English, and it should provide me the answer to that as well. And it did. So these are the confidentiality terms taken from different parts of that agreement and summarized here for me. One of the other things I talked about was Aino's understanding the scope of your question. And then you've seen that a couple times. The first scope was just asking a question of the entire vault. The last few have been asking questions of a single document. Here, I could show that again. I could navigate to my customer list, and I have a customer called ESTT. And as I navigated to that, you could see that it's automatically shifting the scope based on that, based on where I'm navigating to. So I could, of course, switch it back to just ask the entire vault, but I'm going to let it navigate that scope for me because I do have a question for ESTT. And I know we're working on a project for them, a website refresh project, and I'm curious what the objectives are for that website refresh project. And you'll notice I didn't have to add a lot of information to it, like what are the objectives of the website refresh project for the ESTT company, because it knew the scope of what I was asking. And so it was able to limit those documents to only those related to ESTT. And it found a statement of work and pulled out those objectives that were outlined in that statement of work. I could even do things like list the important dates for that project. And again, I didn't have to tell it again what the project was. So because it's conversational, it took the question that I had previously asked it about the website refresh project and knew that that's the project I was talking about and pulled out the relevant dates. And the interesting thing too is it could also actually do a little math as well. So if I wanted to say ask how many days ago was the scheduled project completion date, because this completed on August 31st. We also have some math capabilities built into Aino as well, so it can figure out dates and times and things for you too, and hopefully this works. Yeah, well, 80 days in the future, did not get that one quite right, but it was actually 80 days in the past, so I might have asked that question poorly. So there is some math capabilities in there as well. So I've shown a few different ways to get context. Another one is we could use is just search results. So sometimes you might want to search for a set of documents and then ask questions of that search set of documents. They might not be set in a view, but this is another great way to do it. And now Aino knows, because I searched, that I'm going to ask a question of these search results. So I searched for resumes because I knew I had some resumes for some candidates in there, and I want to hire somebody for the payroll team. So I'm just going to ask the question, are there any candidates with payroll experience? And it's going to look through these resumes from my search results and hopefully find me some candidates with payroll experience. And it did. It found two, Ben and Vilma. And if I want, I could just ask it to tell me more about Vilma. And it knows the Vilma I'm referring to because that was part of the answer in the previous question. So hopefully it'll give me a summary of Vilma's resume. Did. Bigger one. And then if I want to get more specific, I could just ask something like, does she have any certifications? And again, because it's conversational, it knows who I'm referring to. And yes, she has 2 certifications. So again, Really, all these examples are ways to show how you can get answers, you can get insights out of single documents, out of large volumes of documents, things where it might have taken you minutes or hours to find and read through those documents, find those answers. You can get them very quickly just by asking a natural language question. And then you're communicating a natural language and you're following up with those questions. So a great, easy, fast way to kind of get at those nuggets of information that are hidden in all of those documents that you're managing. The last thing I'll show is just quickly switching over to Copilot to show how that might work. And I'm going to show a slightly more complex question just to see if this works. So Copilot's very good at generating content. And so in this case, I'm going to ask it to draft an email for me and draft an email, it's a summary of one of our prospectuses, and not only draft the summary of that, but give me a breakdown of operating expenses. I think I got something else in there. So I will ask Copilot that question. I didn't have to tell Copilot what repository to look into or whether this document should be in SharePoint. It is going to go out and find that relevant prospectus. It's going to draft that email for me with the breakdown of operating expenses that I asked it for. And of course, because it's a demo, it didn't reference the document, but let me try it one more time to see if it works. This time I'm going to go into Teams and ask it the same question. Usually Copilot will reference the document for me and I'll be able to click on that reference and it'll take me to M-Files because that's where it found the document, like that. And so it was able to generate this answer because it found that prospectus, and in this case, that actually lives in M-Files. And again, the user didn't need to know where it was, but it was able to use that information. Copilot was able to use that information because we have the connector between M-Files and Copilot to make that information seamless. So again, that is an example of how we allow our users to get at those nuggets of information. And if I switch back to the presentation, possibly, or I could do it this way. Good. I think we are at the spot where we can take some questions. So again, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. That was some awesome information. Appreciate it. Just a reminder to everybody, if you do have questions, please do ask them in the chat. I'll do our best to answer them for you. Kim, do you see any that have come through in the meantime?
Yep, we do. We have some good ones to answer. So Frank, this is a good one. Maybe you and David can answer this one. So one of our users or one of the attendees said, we have M-Files currently, but like, how do we go about adding the Aino agent like you're showing on the demo?
Yeah, I can take that, Frank, if you would like me to. What we would need to do is set up a call to find out what platform or version of M-Files that you're on, and then determine if it does come with that current version or if we do need to upgrade to a different version. Right now, M-Files comes with the business platform, and so just need to take a look at that and figure it out.
Okay. So I was gonna say, well, we have a follow-up, and so I'll tell you who that is, David, afterwards. And this one was, I thought, a good one. Yeah, can Aino do a comparison between document versions and summarize the changes? You didn't mention that, Frank, but I thought that was a good one.
So comparing changes between document versions, that is something we're looking at. So we are currently doing some rework on our history view, where you would typically see the different versions in M-Files. And one of the things we're looking at adding there is the ability to get a summary between versions in that history view. So it's not there yet, but it's definitely something we're looking into. Yep.
Great. Good question. And then is Aino available? Can you tell us where it's available? Is it on like a web, desktop, mobile? That was a question that someone asked.
Web and desktop currently, mobile sometime next year.
Okay, great. And then if the customer's information that Aino uses is it stored anywhere outside of M-Files? And then how do you use that one, the customer's information?
So there's two types of it. So if it's if you're only using Aino to ask single documents a question, we don't store any information outside M-Files. We build a prompt within M-Files, send that to the language model, and then get an answer, and nothing persists outside of that. For Aino, where we open up the whole vault to question and answer, one of the things that we have to do is build a semantic index to make it so Aino can get the information that it needs to then ask the large language model. That semantic index lives in Azure in our Aino services. So that index would live outside of it in a similar way to your search index might live outside if you're using Smart Search.
That's a good one. And then the other one we had too is I know you showed both the Aino and Copilot, but like, what is the difference between those two like agents, the Aino and the Copilot?
Yeah, there's some overlap in some of the work that they do. The way I look at it is if you were doing things in Word or PowerPoint or Excel, you're already in that tool doing something. You're probably doing something generative, and Copilot is better at that sort of those content generation tasks. M-Files is better because of the way we curate and manage and bring information together. I think M-Files is better for sort of knowledge management, getting information, getting answers, getting insights out of that kind of curated information. So some overlap, but I think they do some. Copilot does some things better. I think M-Files does some things better, but yeah.
Yeah, but still great tools, right? And I think that's where using the appropriate tool. This one is a good one. It's based on documents. So it's a two-part question, Frank. So the first question is, what kind of documents does M-Files Aino work with?
Anything that's text-based, so PDFs, Office documents, text documents. So anything where it's text heavy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then their follow-up question was, are there any limitations on the size of the document? Example, like, you mentioned summarize. Can it summarize a really large document, or does it have a limit?
There are some limitations to the size of the prompt that we can send, but they're fairly large at this point. So they're continually getting, as the language models grow and get better, we continue to upgrade to use the better language models. So those limitations are getting bigger and bigger. But there are some, I don't know what they are offhand, but they're pretty large.
Okay, that's a good one. And then this one I thought was an interesting one. How do you ensure that Aino doesn't hallucinate or give you really, really, really wrong answers?
That's a good question. It's mainly because we only give you answers based on what's in your content. So it won't, if you asked Aino something about, I don't know, Camelot or King Arthur or something, and you didn't have any documents about that, it wouldn't give you an answer. It'll only give you an answer if it could derive that answer from the content in your documents.
Okay. Got it. And then so the other question that I have, and I think this one you mentioned on security, but someone asked again, will users get answers from documents they don't have permission to see?
No. So Aino will only query the documents that you have permissions for. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we'll wrap it up. Appreciate everyone for attending today's webinar, and a special thanks to you, Frank. Just as a reminder, Marco does have a full division here solely dedicated to business process automation and AI solutions for your organization. So if you would like to discuss M-Files Aino or M-Files in general further, please reach out to your Marco representative and we can explore how the solution can specifically impact and benefit your organization.